I know, except cough.
Great. It's 7 o'clock. Call the school committee meeting to order. First item is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item is the consent agenda. That's got the minutes of December 9 and Bill's schedule of Decembers 5 and 13.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries 5-0. Next item is a working session. So we've got Mr. Friend and a gang of administrators here to help him out. This is a working session for the FY21 budget. We're really just starting up on it, so Ted will give us a little bit of an introduction. But the intent here is to start to spark up enough discussion and questions that the administration knows if we're looking in a particular direction that we want to go on the budget, and provides us an opportunity to have an understanding of where you got to the numbers you're at. Did I do that justice?
Yes.
Cool.
So thank you, and I want to thank the administrators who were able to make it tonight. We have a few that could not make it because they had prior engagements. So what I thought I'd first do is start with the big picture and work our way backwards. And so when we were at this place last year, the budget that we presented to the school committee that was voted on in January was $17,923,000.
Sorry, can I just throw in, we have 8 or 9 different documents that were in the package.
I'm sorry. I'm going to take you through the I'm assuming it's the first.
The cover page.
It's the cover page.
Has the
There's like
letterhead
6
on the top.
pages.
Okay.
So it starts with, it's not one of the regular, it's not a Munis report. Everybody with me? Okay. So, like all budgets, we realize that we make adjustments through the next 6 months until we know what the final revenues are. And so we settled in on a budget on June of 2019 of $17,711,000. In August, we finally get our final allocations, and it dropped just slightly to $17,656,000. So now in December, at this point in time, we're back up to $17,908,000. And the reason for that is we have an increase in out-of-district placements of $250,000. So how would we pay for the current situation? So we've increased our circuit breaker allocation to $404,000, up from the original $375,000. And if we were to expend all of our current budget, every penny of it, then we would have to pull from school choice to cover this $250,000 overage, or use a total of $655,000. In my entire tenure here of 10 years, we've never spent down our entire budget. The closest we came was one year where we came within $20,000 of that. But the last several years we've had well over $100,000 remaining in the budget lines. So that's just kind of where we are now. We're also going to apply for extraordinary relief because of this $250,000 increase. I'm assuming the money, I shouldn't say assume, it's anticipated that they will support the extraordinary relief, and so we should see a minimum of $85,000 to offset this $250,000. So as I said at the beginning, there's a long way to go to know exactly where we are budgetarily, but this gives us a starting point. So in doing the budget, principals, administrators, they do their own budgets for their own schools, departments, and then we gather that information and put it in our budget document. So right now, our preliminary budget projection for FY 2021 is $18,644,000, or an overall increase of $988,000. And of that $988,000, $360,000 is an increase in out-of-district tuition. I think it's important to note that, that's a significant cause of this large increase in the budget.
Is that in addition to the 252 that's coming in December?
That 252, when it goes to a full year, goes to 360. So that 250 next year will be 360. 250, 360. Because we're only doing a portion of this year.
And so this isn't in anticipation of new cases next year. This is anticipation of a full year of current cases.
Correct. This is where we are as of today. It can change tomorrow, either way.
And the location where they're at, they're not planning any tuition increases, or are they?
We put into
They're built
this, we budget a percentage increase of, that's why, when you look at the first page and we said it was down to 17,656, that was because the final allocation changes and out-of-district placements and so forth came in. And we budget on the conservative side. What we don't want to do is budget too low and then be caught and not have enough money to cover it. So on the next page, the large categories that we present every year. So the first category is salaries, and overall
Sorry, that's the budget comparisons. Did folks?
budget comparison sheet. And I'll take you through the notes on the side. But our business is salaries. It's approximately 8% of the budget. And our increase will be $460,000 next year, and that's due to contractual raises. But it also includes 2 new instructional assistant positions, 1 a kindergarten aide, so we have a kindergarten aide in each of our kindergartens, and an additional IA in the elementary school, and that's where we stand as of today, a snapshot in time. We've also added a health teacher in this budget. Now, this is what, in order to pay for the health teacher, we're going to eliminate the 2 instructional assistant positions in the elementary library, and the library will be staffed by volunteers. And the difference between the 2 IA salaries and a health teacher is approximately $4,000. And so we feel, based on the vision committee of last year, the number one thing that was brought up was the need for health education across the district. So with this change, we're going to see health education being taught kindergarten through grade 12 in our school district next year, which is outstanding. We've had several retirements. We have a guidance counselor who's retiring, a school nurse, an elementary teacher, and a .2 art teacher. In this budget, administrative raises would be 2%. Administrative support salary, Diane and women in the business office, more like the SESA folks, they would be 3% in what you're seeing here. STA would be a total increase of 3%. We budgeted 2% anticipating contract negotiations. And step changes account for another 1%. And then the SESA contract, it's really a 3% increase. It says 2. It rounded down, but this doesn't include the cafeteria. And so the 75 cents per union member really averages out to 3%. And so that's a total of increase of $460,000. Transportation, this has an increase of $78,000. 6% of this is contractual with AA Transportation, and we increased our repair line. One thing I want to note, we haven't adjusted yet for the new activity van. We want to get through the spring, see if we're able to use the activity van to offset some of our sports transportation, and then we look to May, early June to make some corrections to transportation if it's warranted.
And what portion of that is repairs?
2% of this increase, so about,
I can do it.
I think it's about $14,000. Facilities and utilities went down $13,000. That is basically, we've decreased electricity even more from this current year based on our usage and the new rate we received. However, there were some increases in custodial supplies, and we always budget a 3% or right around 3% increase at this point in time for contractual services, not knowing where they'll come in until we get those contracts in place. Again, out-of-district tuitions, an increase of 45%, $365,000. And then finally, a whole bunch of different accounts: athletics, legal, supplies, technology, miscellaneous. Big chunks of this are textbooks. All the principals put in more for classroom supplies. There's a slight increase in athletic officials, and there's a slight increase in some instructional software. Now, the approach I took with the principals this year is I said, well, we cut some things that they brought forward, but I felt it important for them to put forth, what they believe they need at this point in time. Obviously, when we get further down the line and we see where our revenues are and see how everything shakes out, we will then, put a finer point to some of these line items. Oh, I took my glasses off. I can't see without them. The next page is 2021 projected revenue and budget gap. So again, our grants and revolvings, we're just going off of this year, and we've been conservative in what we're talking about spending for grants and revolvings, and this will go further in the next couple of pages. But we're anticipating just under 1.6 million out of grants and revolvings toward the budget. We anticipate approximately $40,000 increase in Chapter 70 state funding, and we're hoping that the town will continue to be able to support an increase of $400,000 as the town portion, which will bring our revenues in at $18,100,000. And then if you go down to the bottom of that page, you will see if we're at $18,644,000 and we have $18,100,000, we have an initial budget gap, true budget gap, of $548,000. If we did not have that massive increase in out-of-district tuition, we would have a much more manageable $188,000 budget gap. Any questions on that at all?
So the difference between the special ed tuitions that I'm seeing on the budget comparison versus the adjustments to date, why is there, it's roughly $5,000 difference?
Norfolk Aggie tuition.
Okay.
How many
But
students
is
do we
it-
have going there?
Sorry.
I think there's 4 or 5.
Yeah.
There was just one other student that was added that wasn't going to school in Sutton, but lived in Sutton and started as a sophomore this year. That was just recently pointed out to us. Again, the next page is just an allocation comparison. And that's really not that. There's not really much to point out. They're just that in this allocation right now, we had $330,000 for school choice in this current year. And then if you go down to school choice and the tuitions, we have $325,000 to cover out-of-district tuitions out of school choice. We originally had, I believe, $100,000 or $107,000, and then we had to add additional money to cover the additional out-of-district school. So if you look at our allocation, we didn't carry that over into 2021's budget. So that also goes to why there is a big gap. But we didn't put that in there right now because we don't know where school choice revolving will be at the end of the year. And we can't make those decisions because when we go to the next couple of pages, we'll show you where the revolvings will end up 4 or 5 years down the road. And so we have to be very prudent with how we spend down reserve accounts. So if you go to the next page, you have school choice revolving account. And as you can see, in 2018, we had a beginning balance of 674,000. In 2019, it jumped to 796,000. And in 2020, it went to 920,000. So we've been able to grow those revolving accounts because we've been good stewards of the money. We don't spend money if we don't need to. However, if you look at 2020, we are going to have to use, we will not be increasing our school choice revolving next year because of these increases in out-of-district tuitions. But we're a long way away from determining what exactly we'll use out of school choice, and we won't know that number until the middle of June of this year. But if we used all of that money that we allocated, 216,000, 25,000, 109,000, and 330,000, we would drop down to $540,000 to carry over to the next year, which is a significant drop in school choice. I don't think it'll be anything like that. I think if history holds and we get $85,000 to $100,000 out of extraordinary relief, then this will probably be over $700,000. But again, it's too far out to tell exactly what that's going to be. We anticipate a receivable in school choice of approximately $300,000. And so if we continue to use $430,000 of school choice, which is more than we bring in, by 2024, we'll exhaust all of our school choice revenue. And so we got to be very cautious about how we approach the budget and using school choice. Then finally, the other important major funding source is circuit breaker, which is the special education account that pays districts back for tuitions that are above 4 times the average tuition cost of a student, and we get approximately 75% of that. We went very conservative in estimating $375,000. In 2021, we should receive over $400,000 in receivable, but we wanted to just, before we actually see what the numbers are, we just put that as a placeholder. But what you're seeing is that we will not be carrying over any money in school choice into next year. So we'll just be using our receivable.
Circuit breaker.
Circuit breaker, yes.
And even if there are extraordinary circumstances that impact 20, we would spend that down.
We would. Yes, we would use that because we kind of keep our revolvings in 2 main buckets, circuit breaker and school choice.
Circuit breaker has to be used within 2 years, right?
It does. It
Makes
does.
sense to go there first.
So that's kind of the big picture. If I go back, the gap at this point, very early in, not knowing all the numbers, would sit at $548,000 before we put a fine point on the budget. Anybody have any questions at this point about that?
I'm not sure where it fits in. It might be that it's better in another spot. You bring in the Early Learning Center health teacher. How does that impact scheduling or classes?
So we have to have a special. So this would replace the special, the library special that all students attend every day. And that special is contractual because teachers are guaranteed 1 prep period a day. So we need the health teacher contractually for the regular education teachers to have a prep.
So you drop the library special, the volunteers are there so that you can check out books. But
Correct.
the library is really just to check out
Correct.
books.
Yes.
What's the, access that the kids would have to the library?
It would be on, it would,
Lunches?
it would be on the principals to make a schedule to get parent volunteers in and set up checkout times. It could be then, could be after school, certain times of the day when kids will be able to check out books.
What are they learning in that library special now?
They do all kinds of activities. They learn about the genres of the books. Sometimes they'll do a read aloud with an activity after it. They learn how to use the catalogs, the books, and what section they come from. Librarians that are working there, work hard to provide them with a nice activity or some learning experience. They go once a week for 45 minutes.
And again, this is where you've got to weigh which is the best use of our resources, and based on the surveys, based on everything we've had take place in the last couple of years, it was determined that this would be a better special and a more effective schedule for us to, program for our students. So,
And the two, excuse me, I
Yep.
just wanted to make one point. Those two, IA librarians will have a job. They'll just be going into a different role within the schools, the ELC and the elementary.
so I'm not gonna go page by page in the 3 year, so I use the 3-year comparison document when I meet with principals to look at what was spent in previous years. It's become, in some ways, less effective, as Mr. Goyette points out, because we get to this time of the year and I'm like, don't spend another penny. If you want to spend any money, you have to come and see me first. And so we shut down accounts at different times of the year, so it's a little less, but it's probably the best document to look at to see what we've spent in years past. Overall, though, it's in line with what we've done in previous years. There isn't anything extraordinary here. We didn't have, we added esports and we added, there's not a lot of new things in this budget that you haven't seen before.
Sorry, so if you look at the 3-year comparisons, current year is this current budget year we're in, 20, is that right?
Yes.
And then, so you got 19, 18, 17, working your way to the left. You don't have 21 in here.
21 is,
Where it says
Projection level 1.
projection level 1.
Got it,
Yep.
thanks.
and then it also gives you the percentage increase by line.
And that's current year to projection.
Correct.
Yep.
And when you look at this, we go back and forth and we always look, okay, where are the ups and downs? You'll see some lines where it's a 19% increase, but it's $200. And so I don't want to dwell too much on the $200 ones. So unless there's a question, I'll take us through this document relatively quickly. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. So page 1 is, I don't really have anything to report on page 1. Page 2, there's an increase in the superintendent's other expenses. And this is where we put in the Blackstone Valley Superintendent's consortium of courses we'll be offering. We put it there as a placeholder. We're not sure that this is where it belongs, but this is for students to have an opportunity. We'll probably offer computer science next year through this program, manufacturing and engineering, and potentially robotics. So this is a place for 4, 5, 6 students to have an opportunity to take courses we can't offer in Sutton. Really, I don't see anything else on page 2. Just stop me if there's a question. On page 3, information technology, IPASS went up $3,000. Also on the bottom of page 3, for whatever reason, this was probably in the budget someplace else, but we have middle school facilitators, that's contractual, that's at $2,500 at the bottom of page 3. So each grade level has a team leader, or a department has a team leader. Page 4, we just moved the nursing department head on that first line to the nursing line. It's no difference. Salaries, as I said, at 2% on page 4. Page 5. the only thing I'd say about page 5 is the ELC support staff in the office, in the elementary office. We budgeted 18 hours, but, well, we contracted for 18 hours, but we only budgeted for 15, so that was an error, and that's why it's up as much as it is, 9 and 8%. But it's what we use, 18 hours each week for the second administrative assistant in each building.
The projection is much larger than the prior year.
So the prior year, it was budgeted with them working 15 hours. And so in FY '21, it's budgeted with 18 hours, and then the increase that they would be receiving. So that's why it's high.
Page 6, nothing really to page 6. As I, just go back a minute. There's a slight, there's a increase at the high school level for graduation, National Honor Society awards, the Bailey Award. So to capture where we pay for those things out of the high school, which is the very top of page 7. And then again, the only thing, like I said, with teachers and IAs, the only increase we have are the kindergarten IA, an additional elementary IA, and the health teacher, and the 2 library assistants come off the books. So when we look at all these salaries, those are the only changes we see other than contractual increases.
So are there more steps on, or more lane changes in the elementary school coming to drive that number versus the other ones?
We also have a retirement in the elementary school. So you're bringing some.
Excuse me, the Early Learning Center.
So you've got a .5 health teacher in there that wasn't there before. So that was a big chunk of that.
Because you're
still
changing,
Still, I mean,
So
0.5
I
health teacher
also-
isn't that much.
But then you could have a
Works.
change, you also have changes of, you might have a teacher that's in the elementary that's moving to the early learning center, that's higher on the salary scale. So if you compare the 12% and then the elementary going down to minus 3.8%, we have movement around. So we've gone through these numbers 12 times. So it just could be shifting of personnel. Was there anything else that might have affected it?
There's also the allocations. I sat with the principals and adjusted some allocations. So some teachers might work in the ELC in elementary school, but last year I just had them in the ELC. So I made those adjustments, and that's really what made it.
So that's for 2021, but
Right.
so what we're really comparing here is not apples to apples.
Correct.
So the
No,
same,
I mean, I could give you a list of
I know,
the ones I
know.
made,
I'm
but
just saying, it just makes it harder to look at.
it
Yeah.
does.
it does.
I hate Munis, by the way, did I tell you that?
know, it
Yes.
does.
It's awful.
So, and again,
the head
But my goal is to try to really get them in the system as accurate as they are and what schools they actually work in.
That's
So,
what we'd like
you know,
to-
yeah.
So
but it's always going to change, though.
the
Right.
head count in the early learning center, the actual FTEs or people on the books, go up by a half person for the health and 1 for the IA.
Well, the
IA
IA is
in
not
this bucket.
here, but yes, but that's, well,
Yeah.
in the elementary, you add an IA, and the early learning center in the kindergarten, you add an IA. That's all. Same number of teachers at every grade level across the district, except for what I said earlier, where we cut out a .2 art teacher at the high school. Other than that, it's all the same.
The librarians currently stay, they'll stay in the system, plus we're adding a health teacher.
No.
Or
We
you'll
took
have
the
They will not,
librarians
the
are out.
librarians will have a job, but it won't be in the library. We always have people leave the system over the summer in IA positions, so they've been here longer, so they will have a job, but they'll have a different duty.
I use them as a name. What I'm ultimately trying to understand is, are we increasing the head count? There's sort of a shift going on, but it sounds like we're bringing on a health teacher
Is that in place of someone that's retiring? But, like, is the personnel the same?
The personnel
Is that what
is,
you're asking, Paul?
The personnel next year, the only increase in personnel, kindergarten IA, elementary IA, the health teacher, which is offset by the elimination of 2 library assistants in the library at the elementary early learning center level. We also eliminated a .2 art teacher. So if you factor in the .2 art teacher, which is $18,000, it's basically a wash with our professional staff. That's the only changes we have in personnel. We will replace the retirements, and they will come in at a lower pay level.
So I understand how you're doing the dollars. If I counted the number of full-time equivalents, it will have gone up by, or will it stay flat?
It'll go up by 2 IAs. And if you take the 2 library assistants to offset the health teacher, you actually go down 1 there, and then the .2 art teacher as well. So we're up 1 health teacher, down 2 IAs, so that's -1. We're up a total of 1 body for next year, at this point in time.
It looks like steps and lanes, the whole thing is about 156.
Yeah, I think it gets harder, as you say, if we've made some adjustments around, unless you combined the early learning and elementary as one line. It gets harder without knowing how many shifts took place, but
By the way, is there any other grants in this?
I started saying it's really 9, but it isn't 9, because you're not taking this to 0. This is gonna
the
increase
early
by.
learning center has the grants, but it's the same as last year.
So it's apples to apples.
It
Right.
is.
Okay. Okay. I'm on page 8. There is no difference in subs. We're allocating the same amount for subs. It looks like it's down $2,000, but we had to add a line for long-term subs, so we took the 25,000 and we made it 23,000 and allocated $2,000 at each school for long-term subs. So no real changes there. On the bottom of page 8, you see the 1 new kindergarten IA under kindergarten paraprofessionals. That's why you see a 27% increase. Oh, I just caught something here.
So did I.
Yeah, so if you look at the high school, so if you look right above the kindergarten one, you see the high school at 23,000, that'll come down $10,000. So it's level. Because remember, we did that last year, we brought in a building sub,
Yeah, I think we need it. We can talk after, but I don't know.
that's different. That's a different scenario. I'm on page 9. You can see this is where the library assistants, they would have been at approximately $27,000 each position next year, and so those are out of the budget. Everybody with me on that? Okay. Page 10. The only thing I want to point out is the bottom at the high school for professional development. We've had to add in $3,000 for Project Lead the Way and $2,000 for Connections, the ADL training. So that's why that is up $5,000.
What page again?
Bottom of page 10. The very last line on page 10.
On page 9, you've got the library assistants, that's at the middle school, high school level? Is that right?
Yes,
And so no change to the programs at the middle school, high school, and how the libraries are supported there?
correct. So again, if you look at the numbers, 10 or 01 on the first numbers at the very end, that represents the early learning center. 02 or 20 is elementary. 03 or 30 is middle. 40 or 04 is high school, and 50 or 05 is district. That's how you read those numbers on the left.
And the textbooks, Are you on 11, or are you?
Page 11 now, textbooks. So in the middle school, civics, correct, Jerry?
Correct.
So we've had a change in, the state has added civics for 8th grade, so in this is $15,000 for civics books. And that's buying,
It's buying an 8-year subscription with a class set.
right, so you get 30 books and 8 years of online.
Books stay in the building.
Books stay in the building.
You can read
and
online.
for 8 years.
The high school has added in 9th grade world history, which is $13,000, and that's why they have the jump there as well.
Do they do a similar?
I'm not exactly sure how they were looking at that, but I don't know where it left off. We've been talking about that. We're still in that in-between, but my, I don't know where we left off, but my 2 cents was, I'd rather buy a class set and get the online like the middle school's doing. And so I'm not positive if that reflects that or not, but that's the direction we're going in.
Cost-wise, what's the difference?
It's about the same. I mean, because you gotta carry that subscription every year for, well, actually, no, you don't have to, because in this 15,000, it covers that.
That bought you 8 years of online use.
I haven't looked, we looked at this about 2 months ago, so I'd have to go back and look to just see the comparison.
How many do we do online now? Do we do any of this?
Our middle school our middle school math, correct? That's all online now, correct?
Nope.
It's not, but we get the books every year, is that what
We
it
get
is?
the books every year, and then there's the added online component of the math. There's also online components for 7th grade social studies.
Compo-
That's it.
Components, this will be the first case of where you have
So
just the
8th grade,
class
this would
set?
be
This is the first time we've done that. And that, to me, where just about every student in the district has access, an email at home or Wi-Fi, and any student who does not, we have the ability to provide them with a laptop to be able to bring home with them to access their online textbook.
So this includes any updates, corrections that they may need to make on this textbook or online textbook?
I would say that would be accurate because it's online, so any change, just like
I
Rand
sh- I
McNally
should know,
software.
but
Well,
there's no guarantee.
yeah, there's, that's why I said we are in that flux between, but to me, the days of buying a class set of 110 textbooks
Well,
is,
they become outdated so quickly.
it's going out the window. It's just not, it's not even practical. And then, if we start doing that, one of the big reasons why parents say they don't let their kids bring in their laptops and tablets is because they still have their books. So as we start to get off of the books and the books stay at school, then they're just carrying a laptop to them from school. It makes much more sense.
The only thing I would say where it's, because I like the idea where it's the first time coming into the system, I think it would be worth, as we get through next year, getting a sense of experiences around how is it working, how easy is it for the children to log on, or they're just, what are the things we ought to think about doing that?
Sure. Page 12. So it looks like we had a huge jump in copier contract, but we actually had no jump. The copier supplies are built into the overall cost. So if you see, you have to combine 2 lines to get the true cost of the copier machines now. So we actually saw a slight decrease in our overall copier costs.
So what does that include? So that's just copier, are we talking toner too?
Everything.
Toner and Staples.
And state.
Not paper.
No.
That would be great.
Like I said, general class supplies, early learning center, they added some art supplies and workbooks. In the elementary, they added agendas and workbooks. In the middle school, they didn't, I mean, it's up a little bit. Mr. Goyette added some phys ed supplies. And at the high school, they added in the child development, babies, some graphing calculators, and a printer cart. So again, in past years, before it's gotten to you, I've just said, you're crazy, just don't even, we're taking that out. I didn't do that this year. I want to see where we stand, and before I start making cuts like that. On page 15, we're going to take out that top line, $9,600 for instructional software at the high school.
Sorry, Ted, can we do just a couple of, we got a couple of principles.
Sure.
Not a long time, and I'm sorry, but if you get close to the microphone, people won't think we're just making it silly that. What's in the supply lines general? 30-second kind of.
Come chat with us.
Maybe she can sit over there.
Geez, thanks, Paul.
Thanks so much.
Do you want this, Jerry?
No,
No, yeah, and I'm not looking to a
No,
readout of it, just
Yep,
in general.
just,
Yeah.
the basic classroom supplies that, we made a commitment many, many years ago that, parents shouldn't have to get the supply list that's this big and then go to Staples. So we supply the glue sticks, the glue, the scissors, the colored pencils, the markers, and then all, sentence strips. And there's just, unique things for every department that they're looking for, like graphing paper, composition books. And so that's everything that goes into that line item.
All stuff that you'd use over the
Index
course of the year.
cards, stickies, the 3M poster papers. I'm trying to think what's in the closet. Rulers, because, somehow or other you start with a class set of 30 rulers and you end up by, halfway through the year you got 15. So they're constantly going through pencil sharpeners, just basic supplies. And then we also have the art supply, which is a big line item. Music supply, which is a big line item. Music's not cheap. Art's not cheap.
So Jerry and I have worked together now for 10 years. So we had a meeting the other day, and I mentioned the fact that we've had these increases in our district tuitions. And 11 POs came across our desk the next day for supplies.
Good thinking.
But it's also hard if we're trying to ultimately transition to portfolios to not have the appropriate supplies we need. That's just my concern as we move forward.
And that's why I didn't cut them.
And that to me is huge, because what we're doing is we're cutting back on the ability of our kids to be passionate and creative about what they do. And that's huge, and that's my big driving force. So, I'd rather see us cut in other places than cut for our kids.
Well, on that note, honestly, from 7 years ago when I started, this classroom supply list is probably, I'm not exaggerating, an eighth of what it was. It was a large list of things that are, if you look at the elementary school for general supplies, it's not a very long list. Our students still get a list of things they need to bring in, and they do. And I know from families that talk to me, when you have 3 and 4 kids and you go to Staples to buy all the things they need, it really is expensive. But for ours, it's our workbooks for science in 3rd grade, foundations in 3rd grade, the consumables, and our math books are consumables. And then you're looking at supplies like pens and highlighters and that kind of thing, and we really have that down to a bare minimum. I mean, we really worked hard to get it down. Math skill books in grade 3. And then, as Mr. Friend stated, we did put the agenda books in because the students were paying for them. And honestly, it's a lot easier if we just have it in the budget for them. I think it's in the budget for the other schools. And the other item that we added in, you said what it was, I can't remember. Ken.
Workbooks?
It must be a new word. I don't remember that being added. I think that was already in there, but maybe we did have a different one. So basically, I'm not even saying, ours is definitely
And
pared down a lot.
It sounds like a larger portion of your supplies are actually the consumables tied to the specific textbooks or training
Right.
program you're in.
And we really did a very good inventory of what we had, and we had too much of some things, so we wouldn't add it into the next year's budget. Then when we get low on that, obviously we would have to put it back in, but I really believe that, if you take the time just to look through it, what's here, it's very basic. But great, this is what we need, and it's what works for us, and that, the parents are very, supportive in what they send in, and I have to say, as I say all the time, the PTO, we have so many grants that they've given to us for trade books, or chapter books, supplies, I can go on and on. So they work tirelessly, as they did at Chain of Lights and at Breakfast with Santa, to raise monies to pay for these things. And one item I have in every year, and it's been well used, is for the chapter books and the fiction books, because that is what our ELA reading program is based upon.
So the vast majority of that material you all described would have been purchased, or will be purchased regardless. It's sort of a question of, is it going home with parents on a list of, you need to provide?
Yeah,
But-
they get a
but
list on the website every year
This
for our
doesn't
school. I don't know
m-
about Jerry's.
Doesn't really represent additional supplies next year. It represents where the supplies are procured from. Is that-
Yeah, and actually, if the kids run out of glue sticks and that, we do have some in stock, and also, lots of times parents are happy to replenish for the teachers. We're very lucky in this town.
Denise, remember many years ago when, I'm not sure if it was the PTO offered boxes where you could sort of buy your,
Mm-hmm.
does that ever come back up again?
That worked out well the year that happened to 1 or 2
Awesome for
years.
parents.
And
I
I'd have to come back to you on that one, because I'm not
Yeah.
really quite sure why they don't still do that.
Yeah.
But I do think that people were really happy just to fill out a check, and everything that was asked
I
for
like,
was
I like the
paid for.
fact that it didn't just go straight to Staples,
Yeah.
there was, I think there was a little bit of a fundraiser on the back end of it somehow
Yeah,
too.
it was procured, it hit everything on the list, and
Yep.
it was packaged, and
Yeah, and it was in the box, I think the boxes are still kicking around our house.
Yeah.
good boxes.
And the local churches, I have to add, have been very generous at the beginning of the school year for the elementary and ELC kids in supplying backpacks filled with supplies for kids that may need that. So that support is also very helpful.
Anything
So-
else?
You can keep going. We were just looking for some.
No,
Yeah.
well, I always feel bad, so I thank the administrators, because I have them come in 2 different days, but I'm glad you called them up, because otherwise they're just sitting there saying, why did
I mean,
did he have us
I'd
come
rather
here?
Talk to them, because doesn't Jerry, or, don't you guys know your budget? I mean,
Mhm.
sorry, Ted, I'd rather
Sorry.
talk to.
They do.
No, we know it really well.
Yeah.
So that's fine. I mean,
As
I'd
do our
rather-
administrative assistants, and
Yeah, and I'd rather
Sure,
hear more from them than from
than me.
I think just the way it's organized, where it's not one school, it's, piecemeal.
but I mean, I do have to say, since Ted came, like, we've really got that down to what it needs to be and not wasted. There's no waste in it, I don't believe.
But it's just the basics.
Just the basics.
Basics, consumables, and supplies that they need to get every day going. And then we do have, construction paper that's awarded, like you're asking about for projects. We do have supplies for projects. We're pretty well set with that.
We're not, let me be clear here, we're fine. We have the necessary materials to run our school. I don't want anybody to come away thinking that we don't have, we have plenty of supplies. If teachers need something, we have it available for them, 100%. We're in good shape with our building supplies. But if you ask any teacher, they'll always want, and I don't blame them, there's,
So,
ask any middle school principal, and he's always gonna want more.
So
Just-
they
just
give a
ask him.
list, just so you understand this, at the end of the school, towards the end of the school year for the following year, and they get a box filled with things that they need for their classroom, in addition to what the kids come in. So Ted's right about that, but when I say no waste, it's, they're using what they get.
Thank you. I think I squirreled you on page 15.
No, yep, 15.
Thank you.
The instructional software at the top, the $9,600, we're gonna take that either out of, the Chromebooks will be purchasing out of capital. All of that will come out of capital, so that's gonna come out of this budget. It snuck by me, crept by me without me noticing, but that'll be a capital expense, not out of this. Again, instructional software at the Early Learning Center, it went up a little bit because the PTO paid for one of the software items. They're not gonna pay for it anymore, and I don't blame them. There's one new software item in the elementary school. And then at the bottom, in the next to last line, we had an increase of 16%. That's for the video production updates in our video production lab, and that's why that's up. Page 16, again, you see the difference between the guidance counselor's salary, the second and third line down, or the second line down and the fourth line down. That's the replacement of a guidance counselor. Adjustment
I also,
counselor.
there was a guidance counselor that works in every school.
Oh, yeah.
And was never allocated that way in the past, so I did that in the FY '21 budget, and that's why the percentages are very off because of that.
But again, guidance counselors, adjustment counselors, there's no new additional, the only increases in any personnel is contractual. Page 17, not much there. Page 18, at the very bottom of page 18, that's the replacement, nurses retiring. That's why there's the decrease of 19% on 2 lines. The replacement will come in at a lower salary. Page 19,
Budgeted too high for this year.
so
I adjusted it.
there are a couple where it's gone down. Student services other salary and student services other salary. It was budgeted a little too high this year, and that's why it looks like a decrease for next year. Page 20, there's really no change. Page 20.
Sorry, is everybody on page 20? No. I was just giving everybody a couple seconds to catch.
Sure, I'm sorry. Page 21. We have some increases in nursing sub-salary for field trips at the bottom of page 21. You see some of the larger increases there.
What are the doublings of the ones at the top of the page? Student services,
Oh, that
supplies,
did
materials.
I'm sorry. We were talking about this morning, and our AEDs are heading toward end of life, and so we've put in a replacement schedule to replace AEDs in our buildings. I'm on page 22. Again, if you look at the nursing sub-line, the second line down, it has a big increase. That is for the field trip to DC. Transportation, you see that's contractual. It's a 5% increase for transportation, and a 5.6% increase for the middle high school. Athletic coaches on the bottom of page 23, you see it's gone down about $8,000. That's because of less cheerleading. We don't have cheerleading. There's been little to no interest in cheerleading.
What is the Vento?
McKinney-Vento is the homeless transportation account. So we
I
have to, by law, provide, go ahead, Nancy.
And what I did there, it's a little different because I split it out for half contractual, half salary. You never really know which way it's gonna go, so I just split it.
At the top of page 24, athletic officials, you can reduce that $38,000 by $1,500. We had software in that for paying coaches, but we can't do that. And again, this is something we're going to continue to monitor to see. We might be able to reduce that again slightly, but we did spend $33,000 last year actual, so.
And the fees are going up.
And the
for
fees are going up.
officials.
So is this, the fees are going up for officials outside of the officials aren't district employees?
No.
Correct, they are not.
The MIAA sets the fees
Yeah.
for
So
officials, and it
MIAA
changes
sets the
every
fee.
2 years.
And so the increase here is in a fee increase that we didn't see this year.
Correct.
Is it more, is that all fee increase, or is it more officials, more games?
I believe it was just the officials increase. I don't think there was
Okay.
more games, not to my knowledge.
We do the,
And then 1,500 will be coming off of that 38,000. She put in for a software to pay officials, but we can't do that at a school district, so
So
that
we
will be
went-
coming out.
we went 22 to 30, I assume that was a MIA increase. And then 30 to 33,
That was another increase.
but they do that every 2 years.
Usually the fees
And
are-
sometimes it goes, you know, if you have playoff games or districts, or, you know, you're gonna
Got it.
use more officials than you would if you didn't.
The other thing to notice here on this page is athletic transportation. We put more in for our own, using our own buses, because we use them more this year, and less contracted. And then these two lines, 35140040, 35140040, the two athletic contracted lines, one is salary, one is contracted. So one's AA, one is our own drivers. So we're able to use more of our own drivers this year, so that's why instead of budgeting 12,000, we budgeted 30,000 to use our own transportation, and we reduced contracted by 15,000. Now, this would be where we will be looking in June, looking at, are we able to use this for track and field or baseball or any type of, to be able to reduce the cost of transportation with sports.
So it's more appropriate to say we're going from, what's that, 77 to 80,000.
Correct,
Right.
So it's going up
Yes.
by $3,000.
correct.
And is that for, again, more trips, more events? Or
Rate increases. So the employees that work for us, they're, you know, the rates are increasing, and our contracted rate with AA has increased.
We do have a lot of teams who make tournaments too,
Right.
so you've got the,
Right.
figure out the regular season and then
Yeah.
tournament transportation, so.
Right.
That was kind of arrogant, and I meant it.
Yes.
We have good sports teams.
That's right.
We do.
We do.
Um, we had an insurance claim at the bottom of the page, other expenses and charges, and we put in some money for field rentals. Last couple of years, we've had situations where our fields were unusable. We had to use, rent turf fields.
And you, again, anticipate that?
We just put that in just as, so that we have it in the budget.
Do you, but you would anticipate having to do that again, to put it in the budget?
That's why we put it in budget, because it's happened 2 years in a row, so we just want to make sure we have it in there.
So athletic other salary,
That's your game workers, where we take 11,000 and allocate it from our athletic revolving. So majority of it's paid from there.
All of it's paid from there.
Yeah. Well, she put it up to almost 13,000. So
Where were you?
bottom of 24. See the 2802. Second one up, yeah. So 11,000's from the revolving and 2,800's for this budget.
Okay. But we can at that point. So
Right.
we budget 11,000, but we can take more out of the revolving account if there's more money needed to cover the cost of.
Right. It just
Of
depends on the
personnel.
number of games.
We budgeted 13 or 13.8.
Yeah.
11 of it's covered from revolving. If we had to pull more from
We
the
could.
receipts, you could.
Yeah.
Page 25. Under student activities, about 3/4 of the way down the page, this is the high school salary line. This is where we've added in esports for our advisor. So something that we're going to have to come to grips with esport is it's really not a club. It's really not a sport, but it's more like a sport than a club. And so we probably should talk about, should there be a fee to participate in esports? You have a coach in the fall, and you have a coach in the spring. There are costs associated with doing this program, but I don't think it rises to the level of a $300 sports fee. So it's something that we're gonna have to come back to the committee with a recommendation of what we think would be an appropriate fee to participate in esports.
So it's a
We're in the
participation.
league that's not under MIAA?
We're in two different leagues, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, one I think is the MIA.
I think one of the MIA, offshoot of MIA, I believe it's $64 a student to participate, and then you have the coach. And so I think if we're gonna be consistent, we're gonna have to look at something like that and say, but there's not the same level of cost as it would be with a sport. So it's just something that we're gonna need to talk about as we go into next year, before next year, with this new program that we're offering.
What computers do they use?
I think, actually, I'm not sure which room they go into. I don't know if they just use laptops or what. I'm not sure. I haven't actually seen them in action. But they could go anywhere. I mean, we have multiple computer labs. Or they can check out laptops out of our library. So I'm not sure where they go. Page 26. Now, this is where we're getting into custodians. Again, we've added no new custodians. We've added no, so if there are crazy fluctuations within custodian lines, it's simply because we move personnel around. So that's page 26. Page 27. Page 28, we get into custodial supplies. Again, well, Roger, do you want to come up while you're here and maybe talk us through some of this stuff? Talk fast. So I think it'll be educational for us as we go through it to maybe talk about the different supplies that you purchase. So you've had, again, it's all relative. You've had increases in all your custodial supply lines by a couple of $1,000s of each line item. But custodial supplies are, what does that represent?
I got it broken down to a bunch of different categories. We got the floor products, so that's your dust mops, treatments, your floor stripper, the protectants, the sealants for when you strip and wax the floors. There's another product called Restore, so once you've waxed the floors, you don't have to re-wax. You hopefully use this Restore, and it'll bring the luster back to the shine and everything. There's the paper products, paper towels, tissues, toilet paper, the hand towels that you put in the classrooms as well as the bathrooms. Then we got the disinfectants. That includes your bleach, your urinal screens, foaming hand sanitizer, and some bacterial type of chemicals that we use in the bathrooms to try to keep the odors under control. Cleaning chemicals, there's sanitizers, disinfectants, degreasers, carpet cleaner, winter clean. There's a product central that we have, and that's a whole bunch of different chemicals that are, each one serves a different purpose. If you're cleaning a table like this, or if you're going to be cleaning a kitchen table, there's a floor product to help minimize the white streakiness with the salt gets put down during the winter. So that's a kind of an expensive process, but that's the main chemicals that everybody uses. And then we have some stronger chemicals that are there in case these chemicals don't work, because a lot of these chemicals can be eco-friendly, but sometimes they don't always do what you want them to do, so you need something a little bit more potent. And that goes under also the other chemicals, the graffiti wipes, which is usually a little bit more powerful stuff. You got the stainless steel polish, toilet cleaners, furniture polish, gum remover. And then under the mops, you got all the different types of pads that go with the different mop heads, and the handles themselves, the mop buckets, all that kind of stuff. Trash bags and plastic cups and gloves, we categorize them all, and that's a good line item also, because price of plastic increases almost every year, and you can see all the trash bags that we go through between classrooms, and just ordinary, take the big barrels of trash in the cafeteria, probably go through 20 or 30 of them at lunchtime alone. never mind at the end of the day when we go through all the other rest of the classrooms.
Okay.
So it's pretty much all the custodial supplies. So each building is broken down. Pretty much they're pretty equal, like elementary and early learning is pretty much, if you look at the line items, they're pretty close to each other. There may be a few different things, because some areas have carpet, some areas have, you know, vinyl flooring, so you're gonna use more wax over in those areas. In the high school and middle school, pretty much track together too for the same amount of chemicals and products that we need.
Okay, don't go anywhere. Heating oil, we had the slight increase of heating oil from 2.0675 cents to 2.1547. And so this is just based on the gallons that we've used historically. So you see a slight increase at the early learning center elementary, and a $5,000 increase at the middle and high school.
Why different like that? You're just zeroing in on the high school?
Gallons
Gallons
used.
in the schools.
It's all based on the gallons we use. Telephone. Page 30, the very bottom of page 30. We are, based on the electrical rate, the electricity rate we received, we are confident that we can reduce the middle school and the high school by an additional $16,000 each, for significant savings of electricity thanks to net metering. We also have a decrease of about $4,000 for the district-wide electric bill. The water treatment plan is contractual on page 31. Trash removal, we've gone up. You see a 20% increase. We've added one extra pickup a month for recyclables. And that's mainly caused by cafeteria. Is that pretty accurate? The
Yes,
boxes that
yeah.
come in,
Right.
we recycle lots of boxes.
So how has that changed over the past few years?
We've been struggling to keep the recyclables bins empty, because we're every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And we've just decided this year that we seem to be getting more and more cardboard, and the cardboard, you know, you can compress down so far. And we've asked for an extra pickup to try to alleviate the spillage over, because if we don't put it in there.
It blows out too.
Well, not only that, it goes in regular trash.
Right.
So, one way or the
So
other,
we
we pay
compre-
for it.
So are we truly breaking it down?
With the cardboard boxes?
Yeah.
Yeah, we flatten it down as much as we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
They
can,
pull-
can you look at the footage
Sure,
for what's going
Do
in
we- do we
there,
have-
please?
yes.
Thank you.
On the recyclables, is there any way we can have a conversation with Jim Smith and Dave at the transfer station? If residents are using the transfer station for recyclables, is there any way that the town, the DPW or something can swing by once a week with a truck and pick up the stuff and take it over to the transfer station? And I don't know if it's cost effective that way, but
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, but you think about it, a lot of this stuff is very loose, and I don't think we have a box truck or anything like
Well-
that to carry a trash truck to.
We'll look at it.
Okay.
It's worth exploring, to take a look.
I don't know if there's a savings
Sure.
either way.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a
But
good one. I didn't think of that.
We do bring some of our recyclable goods like metals,
Yep.
things down to the transfer station, and we throw it in a metal pile.
Dave's pretty creative down there, so he might be able to come up with something, so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, there's very little market right now for glass, plastic,
Okay.
or the paper or cardboard. The only thing that we get money for is metals.
Okay,
So if you were to bring it down there, we'd still have to charge you because we're paying to get rid of it.
okay.
It may be cheaper, I don't know. It's, you know, you can certainly look into that, maybe.
But it's probably a
We might charge you
wash.
less, but
Okay,
there still will be a cost.
all right, great, thanks, Tim.
And the recycled is cheaper to have picked up than the regular trash, is that true? Or have we crossed
That
the
I'm not
line
sure.
there?
I think it's slightly cheaper, yes.
But that'll probably change too
Well,
if
that's-
China continues to not take our recyclables.
I think worth having a sense of what are we recycling at a cost.
Sure. And, again, it might be, if we talk to them and say, well, if it's, because we're kind of in between, adding another run, they're not gonna get as filled. We'll explore it though, we'll find out. I mean, we're not talking a lot of money here, but it's something to look at. The wastewater treatment plant, again on page 33, is contractual. Raj, any issues so far this year with the wastewater treatment plant with all the work we've done?
No, it's actually not gonna look pretty good right now.
Okay. I know, I shouldn't have said anything. I'm sorry. The next page, page 34, is, again, all contractual, except for the very bottom, which is ground supplies and materials, which is unchanged.
Sorry, and that ground supplies and materials would be all of the fields, sundries for the tractors, lawnmowers.
Yes, repairs for tractors, parts.
Snow melts.
blades, yeah,
Mulch.
Mulch, sand, dirt, wherever you need to fix something outside, depending on what it is.
Page 35, again, is all salaries, no change. Building maintenance support, this is the $4,000 stipend for Dottie in the business office to help Roger with his POs and his budgeting. And then, again, Roger's put in an estimate of what he believes contractual services will go up. This is just a guess at this point of a placeholder for, so at the very bottom of page 36, and on page 37, you have contractual services, like Norel and
Yeah.
elevator, so forth and so on. So then, another category that maybe you don't have to go into quite as much detail is the, now it's building supplies and materials for each building, which we put in $10,000 for each building, but in general, what type of things do we get for building supplies and materials, Raj?
This is stuff that we would go to Home Depot if, say a bookcase breaks or something and we need to replace a board on it, or a L bracket, or a piece of machinery in the classroom that breaks down, and we try to make the fixes the best we can, so we may have to go to Home Depot or someplace else to get these parts. Also covers our maintenance equipment for interior of the building, the floor scrubbers, vacuum cleaners. I mean, you consider the amount of use that all this stuff gets, there's something that breaks down, at least once a month or something like that. It includes plumbing parts for faucet fixes, valves, and if there's something that we think we can fix versus calling a contractor, this is where we pull this money from to buy that part, and then if we can fix it ourselves, we fix it ourselves.
So if we have a contractor come in to do a valve or replace a fixture, the materials will also be included in that expense.
If we had them do the whole thing correct, if it's something that we think we can handle ourselves, then we'll order the part and do it ourselves, and if we run into a problem, we just have to have them just to do the install.
So the next category are building other repair expenses. These are the bigger repairs. I'll just mention one, and you can talk a little bit more, Raj, but we had talked about the glycol pump system.
Mhm.
So that's reflected in the elementary increase from 18 to 25. So to replace the glycol costs $10,000. It costs more than that. It costs like $13,000 to $14,000. And so for long-term, we put in the glycol pumping system into the budget so that we're able to manage that on our own without having a company come out and do that.
And so that recent $6,300 bill for glycol was glycol as in disposal,
Yes,
and that was, okay. So that's
that was a
not-
piece of it, yes.
Yes, there was two pieces to that. One was disposal and the other was buying the new product and putting it in.
And there was a mistake on the net, if you go down further and you get to network administrative salary, that was just, the wrong salary was put in, so that would be a 2% increase. I'm on page 39. The only thing we're looking at is, sick leave buyback. We have to see where we are with sick leave buyback contractually. Although we have sick leave buyback still for the SESA, so we'll probably maintain $11,000 there now for the next year or two, and then that line should eventually completely go away. Now we have special education. Okay, Roger, I guess you're all set. We'll bring Karen in.
Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
If we have any questions for you, Karen, come on up. We've put a placeholder in for the special education director. We're not sure what that cost will be. And we've posted for the position. We have about 12 or 13 applicants who have applied. I'm gonna start the process. We'll have a committee of about 10 or 12 people for that process, including parents, staff, administration. Mr. Goyette and Ms. Merriam will be chairing that committee to find the replacement for special ed director. If you look on page 40, again, this is mainly salaries. The only thing I'd point out is it says sped curriculum other. This is Karen's account. It's down about $2,000 because we reduced Wilson training out of that line. We had trained a bunch of teachers last year in Wilson. I might not have needed you to come up here. Page 41. Again, these are all salary lines. The only thing I'm going to point out is we still have to do some adjusting on summer school. So last year, we spent more on teachers and less on instructional assistants, and it all washed out. And so this is still a little high, in my opinion. So this is an area, when you look at summer, that will probably make some tweaks, but we won't know that until we get to May, Karen.
Yeah, April, May.
And that's where we'll know what students will be attending and what our actual needs are. So it's a little bit of a guessing game.
When you do that, are they all in one school, or
No.
are they in all the appropriate age school?
Cross-district.
You're there.
Yeah. Page 41, again, that's all salaries. Page 42, once again, it's all salaries, but now we're getting into med therapeutic, OT, PT, speech. Again, no additional personnel. Page 43, again,
Sorry, on 42, there's several lines that have reductions. One, what's that, the high school, yeah, the high school dropped down by, but it's 13%.
That's another example, like I said earlier, with the teachers working in different schools. So I adjusted the allocations that I wasn't aware of before, so it made it
remember how we
look
didn't
like that.
replace a teacher last year in the middle school and was sharing personnel? And so more high school folks went down to the middle school. Page 43, again, no med therapeutic contracted elementary. Did that go down? It did go down.
So again, depending on the need of the students. So that's our outside people that might come in.
Right. But we did cut it in half, so there was a savings. They were anticipating the students that are involved. Slight decrease in med therapeutic contracted at the high school, halfway down, a savings of $3,000. No more changes on 44, page 45. Again, we have the one additional IA in the elementary school, the rest is contractual. We did reduce some paraprofessionals in the summer, but again, we'll fine tune that. That's what I'm saying. We put in the budget now. In May, we'll start fine tuning our summer numbers.
So that 382 line, we'll get some fine tuning, or is that,
The 12% increase.
yeah?
No, that's,
It's a lot of movement from the paras from last year to this year. That, not necessarily FTEs, but placements. So it's
paras are
really,
paras are
they
brutal.
just move all the time.
We have,
So it's so, right, Karen?
So is it
Yes.
more effective to look at that at a district level rather than by school? Like,
You know, we
do I
go
have to
back and
add those up
forth.
to-
because you have kids move from 5th to 6th grade, and then personnel moves with them. And we had a couple of students leave our district, and so now we're shifting personnel in other directions. So if you want, we can just come with a district-wide, this is how many IAs we have, and to give you the big picture.
Do IAs have the same certification as teachers by
No.
grades? No.
So we can utilize them across the
Across
district.
the district, okay.
It's nice to be able to look at by school, but this is the second or third case of really big numbers where the answer is, don't worry, if you took the time to add them up, it wouldn't have moved
Right,
much.
right.
And I think it would be useful, rather than 5 of us each trying to add them.
So,
Or
What
at least
Karen
me,
and
you
I,
guys might be able to do it. but-
Karen and I actually started doing is just going by FTEs, like how many FTEs are in the ELC, how many, instead of
Yeah,
going,
no,
because it made it easier even for us, because they're just,
There's sort of an element of, we've been going through this, and I think it's the appropriate way to do it, but we're looking at these percent shifts, and we get to a couple of groups, this is maybe it just reached the limit of groups I'd try to remember, where the answer was, don't worry about those percentages, we're just, and,
Right.
well,
Yep.
yeah, I guess I would like
Trust
to
us.
next time next time we go around on these where the answer is going to be, it's because we've reallocated within the schools, we should have the addition done in advance.
We had talked about that because you're right, it just gets so confusing. It's,
Yeah, if you roll it all up into just district lines, to be sure, we're gonna say, can you break that out by school? I just think in the cases of these where you know it's
And
coming.
it'd be interesting to see the trend in personnel. How many FTEs, how many, the part-time are there? What makes up the number that we're looking at? And if you do it over historically, I'd love to see that for personnel across the district. I'd love to see for this dollar amount, these are how many full-time teachers we've got, how many part-time, and historically across the board. So for the previous 5 years and projected forward 3 years, where do we anticipate going?
that would be easy to do on everything. The only one I think would be very hard to do is the paraprofessionals, because they come and go, so
Like within a year, this year.
even, right, in this school year,
This month.
would we lose 4?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I think,
you know,
I
so
think,
it's-
well, I think you're looking at just what were the actual numbers of
Numbers, yeah.
numbers, not so much, because
Not-
it's hard to
not the
compare
trending
salaries.
within the year,
Yeah.
but the actual year,
Sure.
ultimately, what was the number we were using and working with? As far as.
like how many are required and.
Yeah.
I gotcha, okay.
And what we pay out.
On page 46, again, I don't see anything. This is field trips, the continuation of paraprofessionals on page 47. Again, if you look at technology, special education hardware, it's really a guess. Kids come in, you don't know what their needs might be. We write an IEP and they need a tablet or so that varies, so that's more of a guessing game. Page 48. Other than software, this is our school psychologist salaries, that's salary driven. No changes in school psychologists. Site contracted services has gone up because the person that we use is raising her rates, still below any area company that offers these services, but it's gone up a little bit. And that's all for page 49. Page 50. So you'll see a decrease of drivers monitors, the second line of 19%. And then but if you go down 2 lines down, we've added $42,000 to contracted services, so it's basically the same amount of money. It was just split differently in how we allocate. So the total is approximately $202,000. And that's our own internal or contracted driving. We've had a situation now where we might have a student come in partway through the year. We're not able to provide with our own transportation. We have to contract with Van Pool or AA Transportation.
So if you do contracted services, what you have at 42, that's contracted the driver, the car, all of it?
Yes.
If you do the line as drivers, does that include the cost of the equipment, or is that just salaries?
No, the equipment is down the line, a couple of lines below at 47,000. Sped transportation other. That's all our repairs, gasoline.
For the vehicles used for SPED. There's a similar
Correct.
line for athletics.
Right.
transportation
Correct.
other. So it's,
It's about $250,000 if you put all three of those lines
all three
together
lines
to do our own internal special education transportation. And then the rest is out of district tuitions. Do you have that exact number of where we are with out of district tuitions
Right now or next year?
for next year? Actually, I have it here. So next year, as it stands, out-of-district tuitions stand at $1,170,000 in total. It's hard to show it in this budget because we have the 240 grant, we have circuit breaker, we have school choice that all go toward paying this, but the total out-of-district cost, and is this current?
So
The 805?
yeah, that's current.
So right now, we sit at 805, so the increase is $365,000.
5,000 of that is the Norfolk, and then the rest is the tuitions.
So again, I will say, I think the administrators did a great job. They put in what I believe they didn't put a big wish list together. They put what they believe that they need to run their schools. Roger put in what he believes he needs to run. And certainly our IEPs drive out-of-district placements and those costs. So I think going in, this is not a bad place to be at this point in time, in my opinion, knowing that we did have this increase in out-of-district tuitions.
questions? We had some notes on kind of the next go-round, thoughts people want to see or not see.
Just see what the number is in another 2 months.
So one of the things I was gonna suggest is, we went over this pretty quickly. Of course, you guys have been doing this a long time now, so it's not the general public, but you guys have seen these numbers for years. But if you do look at over the next couple of weeks, before our next meeting in January, I think, if there are additional questions before we get to the public hearing. But this is just gonna be our initial budget in January.
Timeframe for the public hearing, the rest of the, kind of the timeframe.
Public hearing is the last Monday in January,
Late January.
late January. Well, last year we did the FinCom meeting in April. I don't know if that's gonna be the case again this year.
January 27th.
Normally it's March, but last year was April, so I'm not,
I have,
do you have the?
January 27th.
oh, that's all we have.
Yeah, so we're just, the date, so yeah, January 27th is the school public hearing, which is not too dissimilar than what just happened tonight. And the FinCom is to be determined. The annual town meeting is May 11th. So a lot's gonna transpire between now and then.
So, first meeting in January, we should also talk format of public hearing, if there's anything we think should add or subtract. We should figure on FinCom middle of April, is that right?
Either
No, I'm
March or
sorry,
April.
middle of March, middle of March. And then if it pushes out, and then May town meeting vote. Just so folks have a sense of where's
Sure.
the budget and timing, yeah.
And Nancy will be working on, off of last year's budget presentation, to do a very similar budget presentation for the January meeting. And that's something we're gonna be working on for the next 5 or 6 weeks to present to FinCom. To present to you, like we did last year. And we'll get that to you guys in early January.
And if anybody's watching and is interested, all of what you just went through, including the 52 pages of the budget, is in the package. So if you go to the school website, you can pull down today's package and have this.
Anyone go on, not only do you have the 6 pages that I went out through in the beginning, you have a 3-year comparison document, and you also have the detailed budget under this school committee packet. So anybody can go online, look at how many pens we buy, and every detail that's in this budget is available to the public.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would make a motion then to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.